Hello and welcome to a draft here on Arcane Cards. My name is Damon and we're doing Rivals of Ixalan, which has just come onto Magic Online. And we opened some pretty sweet stuff with the Jade Light Ranger here. Aside from being worth a few tickets, this is also just a very, very solid card. Double Explore, so you're either getting a 4-3, a 3-2, or a 2-1 that drew you 2 cards. Wish we could in fact take most of this pack, because Forerunner of the Heralds has been pretty amazing in all of the decks I've seen it in. You get to tutor out your great merfolk, and then it just becomes a huge threat on its own. Particularly good in conjunction with something, say, like the Jungleborn Pioneer, which has also really impressed me. For instance, if you play the Forerunner and then you play this next turn, this gets 2+1/+1 counters, you've got 2 extra merfolk, blah blah blah. Profit. Curious Obsession has also been pretty good on the 1/1 Merfolk Unblockable, or just like a good flyer. It's pretty decent little cheap evasive aura that replaces itself, but I'm very happy to take the Jade Light Ranger first. We get Jade Light Ranger, and there's a Legion Lieutenant, which we could pick up next, on the off chance that, say, Vampires is more open than Merfolk, or we could just pick up a very decent merfolk in the Riverwise Augur. I've also been pretty impressed by this one, especially if you've got a way of shuffling your deck. It's very strong. So the Legion Lieutenant is very strong, so is the Riverwise Augur, which fits better with our first pick, of course. Might be time to force into that merfolk. There's also a 1/1 Unblockable. There's a Moment of Craving, which is pretty strong, although I'd take either of these over it. I think because we don't exactly know what's open at the moment, I'm going to take the slightly more powerful upside pick of Legion Lieutenant. That way, if Vampires are open, we can go Vamps with this, and if Merfolk are open, we can just go Merfolk with our Jade Light Ranger. And this card, while strong, is not like a huge pull into Merfolk. It's just a solid blue card in any deck. So hedge our bets here by taking the Lieutenant. And it looks like maybe that Vampires is the way we're going to go, since 0 Merfolk in this pack. There is a decent blue removal spell if we wanted to kind of force the merfolk. There's also a very solid vampire here in the Skymarch Aspirant. A 2/1 that gets flying later in the game. That's a vampire, works well with the aggressive strategy. I think that's the easy, like, signalish pick here, considering what we've taken the first 2 picks. Jade Light Ranger might not be making it, or it might. We'll see what keeps happening for us further down this pack. Okay, so here we've got, as an Evolving Wilds, Pride of Conquerors, Spirewinder. So there's nothing really for the Vampires deck. In terms of the Merfolk deck, there's the Jadecraft Artisan, or just a Kite Sail Corsair. I've been pretty impressed with the Corsair, or we could also take an Evolving Wilds. I mean, these are fine cards, but I mean, this is good, don't get me wrong, this is very good, but we don't have any other blue cards so far, and if we end up in Merfolk, like, it's still fine, but it doesn't have Merfolk synergies. There's also a Spirewinder, which is pretty decent. I'm going to kind of hedge a little bit and take this Evolving Wilds, because, we essentially always play that card, and kind of going to wait to see what's open before committing to another colour. We've got 3 really strong cards to start off with, and Evolving Wilds will make pretty much any deck, unless it's an easy 2-color one that doesn't need the Evolving Wilds for fixing. I mean, if this was the Merfolk Lord, we'd be rolling in it. Okay, so here we've got decent Merfolk, good removal spell in Hunt the Weak, Famished Paladin, which I found to be pretty impressive if you've got ways to gain life, and I think that's probably the pick up here. I mean, there's a few Merfolk, but like, we don't have Merfolk payoffs as such yet, and we've only got the Jade Light Ranger, which isn't really, it's just like a good card in any deck. So I think that's going to lean me towards taking the Famished Paladin here instead of, say, the Gilt Grove Stalker. I think the Paladin is also a slightly stronger card, and we do have 2 cards pulling us to towards Vampires, even though I'd love to play this Jade Light Ranger. It doesn't look necessarily like we're going to be getting it in there. With that said, this next pack has no playable, and the other option is we could also just be a green-white deck. No playable kind of vampire synergies, I was going to say. The Cherished Hatchling, which is only really good in that dinosaur deck. So I might take the Stalker here, since I'm more pulled towards green than black currently, even though black gives me the vampires. But this doesn't give me a vampire synergy. This vampire does, but I don't think it's amazing. So I'm going to take the Stalker. So we've kind of got a green hedge going on here as well. Let's look at what the next pack brings us. So there's a River Data for the Merfolk deck. It's not a huge sign. There's an Arterial Flow, which is actually, I think, pretty good in the vampire deck, because you can trigger life gain. I found there's less ways to trigger life gain in this set, so getting the few ways that you do have to trigger it is pretty good. We could also just take a Raptor Companion, which is a 2-drop, and is less dangerous to pick. Like, this is double black, it's a pretty heavy commitment into black. 0 green cards in this pack though. So between the Raptor Companion and the Flow, I'll take the Flow. I think it's fairly powerful if we do end up going into vampires. 2 more Evolving Wilds and a Spirewinder. We haven't picked up any blues so far, so picking up a Spirewinder here isn't exactly amazing for us. Probably just take another Evolving Wilds over a Goblin Trailblazer, which I think is just the best card in this pack. Very aggressive 2-drop, but we haven't really picked up any other red to support it. And an Erasca Relic, which seems better in sealed than in this format, although if it is in this format, you probably just play it in a dinosaur deck. So I'll take the foil Evolving Wilds for value. See what comes around. We've got a Hornswoggle, a Mistcloaked Herald, no more green, which is a shame, and a pretty meh black card. On the off chance that Merfolk is open, I'll take this Mistcloaked Herald. Kind of our Merfolk pool there. So we're almost round. Is this? Oh, that was our opening. That was our opening pack. Actually, I didn't realize, because 9 cards in total. So yeah, the other Merfolk payoff card was the one that's searched out of our library, so that's gone. But there is an aggressive Urge here. Nothing else in our colours, so I'm going to take the Urge. Still not entirely sure what colours we're going to end up in. Might just be like green-white with some combat tricks at the moment. So there's a Sun Sentinel versus a Raptor. Since we don't really know what we're doing, I'll take the Sentinel. Alright, green seems to be coming back around, so maybe the vampires... Sorry, I didn't even talk about that pick. The Cacophodon I don't think is a very good card. So we've got the option of going green-white, splashing the Lieutenant pretty easily off these Evolving Wilds. That could definitely work. It does seem like green was pretty open there at the end of that pack. Looking at this pack, we've got a bit of a failure in the rare. I haven't found out a way to actually make this playable yet. If you can somehow sacrifice the enchantment, then you can come up on cards, but it's pretty hard to do. It's a very playable green 3-drop here, which I might just take, given the absence of really strong vampire payoffs here. There's a Reaver Ambush, but I've been unimpressed with this card. It's fine. It does what Vanquish the Weak does, which was trades for something about the same mana. It does exile at least, but I'm still not drawn to it. It's basically between Luminous Bombs and the Thrashing Brontodon. And I think because our green is now just a little bit better than our white, that I'm going to just take the Thrashing Brontodon. You can't go wrong with 3 for a 3/4, and it's just got random upside on it. Hunt the Weak would be nice if we could get that. So it looks like we're kind of moving into a green-white, maybe splashing this Lieutenant. Let's take out this Arterial Flow. We do have 2 ways to splash currently. This is converted mana cost. This is non-creatures. So if we did want to splash, there's a couple of options for us here. There's a land which could help us splash in the black. There's a Squire's Devotion, which is just a nice aura to have, and there's a Hardy Veteran, which is just a nice 2-drop to have. The Squire's Devotion does have some nice synergy with the Legion Lieutenant. And it might be time to pick up an aura like this. There's also a removal spell and a good blue 2-drop, but I think let's bring the Hardy Veteran and the Squire's Devotion. I think auras are still pretty good, although they got a little bit worse in this set, so I'm going to take the Squire's Devotion. Next pack, we've got a couple of decent, again, merfolk cards. This would also help us splash, so seems to be lots of jewels running around, which is nice. We should be able to pick up some of them. I might even be taking it here since there's nothing else really in this pack that's drawing me. This is good, but it's been surprisingly good. It's pretty hard to block, but again, it's sort of merfolk synergy payoff. I think at this stage I'll probably just take the Foul Orchard. I mean, it gives us a pretty safe splash onto the Legion Lieutenant with the double Evolving Wilds, and we might even pick up another way to splash, so I'm pretty happy about that. Ooh, nice. Okay. This card is actually playable, I think, if you get, if you build a sort of control-ish defensive deck around it. Everyone draws the card at the beginning of your upkeep, so it's not like they immediately get the card, which is generally the downside with these cards, although it still is 4 mana, doesn't really affect the board. Baffling End is just a good removal spell. Falls under the same category as that, whatever the other Vanquish the Weak was called, that exiles it, but this at least only costs 2 mana, and is converted mana cost 3 or less instead of power, so you can get rid of some really big things if they happen to get buffed up. I also like Moment of Triumph. The Jadecraft Guardian is perfectly playable. It's a Traveler's Amulet to really solidify the splash, but I think this is good. I'm kind of looking like a low-to-the-ground aggressive deck with, a couple of removal spells, some auras. So here we've got a choice to pick up a Colossal Dreadmaw or a second Squire's Devotion. Also, there's a Sanguine Glorifier in the pack. Don't know how much we really want the Colossal Dreadmaw. I think the Squire's Devotion just might be better. I'm just going to buff up our small things and hope that they don't have any good removal spells, and even this still leaves something behind, so that's pretty nice. Right, there's a giant dinosaur that we're not interested in. There's a Jungle Creeper, which could also be good on the splash. This would just be value deck if we take the Jungle Creeper. Or I could take a 2-drop with no synergy, a Plummet for the sideboard, or a Voracious Vampire, but that's not really what we want to splash for. I feel like the Creeper is okay. This card is also very unplayable, because you need to be so low for it to be effective that it's dead in your hand for most of the game. I think I'll take the Jungle Creeper here over just like a playable 2-drop. Doesn't seem like there's a shortage of 2-drops so far. The Jungle Creeper seems like it could also be quite nice on the splash, and just as a solid card. Wow, that's cool. Very late Sky Marcher Aspirant. So it doesn't look like anyone's drafting maybe the vampires, or if they are, they're drafting like not the aggressive ones. I don't know, Sky Marcher Aspirant going this late is a bit strange. I think this card's really good, of course. Alright, we're wheeling a lot of nice stuff. There's a Foul Orchard. This Blue-White Skies deck is pretty open. There's a Moment of Triumph, which could be a nice little combat trick. We do have a couple of combat tricks currently, so maybe I don't want it. There's also a Recover, which can be pretty good. We didn't get any like Chupacabra nonsense, but Recover could also be pretty good, just bringing back our stuff. What do we have that triggers with life gain? The Paladin. Interesting pickup here. Recover, Moment of Triumph for the Foul Orchard. I'm going to take the combat trick, although I'm not really sure about that. That could be wrong. Maybe I should just be taking the Foul Orchard or something. I feel like I saw another Foul Orchard coming around, so maybe we'll just get that one instead. We could take a Snubhorn here if we wanted, or don't really want Dinosaur Hunter on the splash. Have an Armasaur, just at the top of the curve, or a Traveler's Amulet to really solidify the splash. I don't think I'll have trouble picking up a random dorky green finisher, and I don't think this is a great one, so I'll take the Amulet. Hardy Veteran on the wheel is nice, over a Cleansing Ray, which is a decent sideboard card. My choice of dorky green creatures, we're kind of going a bit more aggressive at the moment, so I think maybe I want the Frill back over a Sun Sentinel, or do I just want more 2-drops? Can't really go wrong with 2 2s for 2. Alright. Another Moment of Triumph over a Naturalize. I think our deck is low to the ground enough right now, and we've kind of got the incidental Naturalize effect on the Thrashing Brontodon. Snubhorn, Sentry. Wow, alright. You know what would be really good for this deck, although we've already gone through 2 packs, we can't get it, is that something about Feed the Pack, or the 6-mana green sorcery that puts 2+1/+1 counters on each of your creatures. Now that would have had a good time in this deck. Unfortunately we didn't get there, but we have got Lots of cheap combat tricks, lots of cheap creatures, and yeah, it looks pretty low to the ground. Haven't tried out green-white yet, but this definitely looks like what it wants to be doing. So there's Awakening Sun's Avatar, which is kind of not what we want to be doing, so I'm probably not picking that, even though it's a giant mythic in our colours. Probably just taking a Dante Vanguard here. And the only real other option for us would be something like splashing the Freebooter. I mean, we're still splashing anyway. Or a Vampire Zeal, but I've still already got a couple of +2/+2 combat tricks. I like just having this pretty efficient, aggressive attacker again. It's a vampire, it's got synergy. What's not to like? So I could pick up a Bellowing Aegisaur here, not that I really have any ways to enable its Enrage, or I could just keep picking up 2-drops. Deeproot Warrior, Merfolk card doesn't have any synergy, but just goes well with the deck. I mean, I don't quite know how many 2-drops becomes too many, but I feel like we might just win a lot of games with this. You know, with aggressive 2-drops and eat cheap combat tricks. The Aegisaur is nice because it sort of pumps up the team, but getting it to Enrage, it might just be a bit tricky. I don't need 2-drops, but this is a good 2-drop attacker. I feel like I can get the Aegisaur. I'm going to take this... sorry, I feel like I can get Deeproot Warriors. Well, maybe not Deeproot Warriors, but I can get other 2/2s. I'm going to take the Aegisaur just in case I need some kind of big top end. Cobbled Wings could be decent in this deck. There's also Ravenous Daggertooth. Dark Nourishment on the splash. What's my removal looking like? I've got Baffling End and cheap combat tricks so far. Yeah, I think it's between the Cobbled Wings, the Ravenous Daggertooth, and the Dark Nourishment. Cobbled Wings is less impressive when you're putting it on 2/2s. So I think I'll skip on that for the moment. So do I want Daggertooth or Dark Nourishment? Nourishment's pretty good, I guess. You can go to the face. You can finish, like, some burn. A burn spell if need be. Commander's Speaker. Unfortunately, I don't really... It's mostly going to be a 1/1 because I don't have islands and I don't have many merfolk. With that said, there's nothing much else in the pack, apart from a Jungle Delver, which seems strictly worse most of the time. This is Brontodon, but I'm really not into a 7-drop, especially not... I mean, I guess it's got like some synergy with the Hardy Veterans. There's a chance we get more... There's a chance we just get really aggressive and pick up a couple of aggressive merfolk, so I guess I'll take the Commander's Speaker. Cheap combat trick, I think I will take over, say, a Raptor Companion. Yeah, I think we're just going to win with this deck with combat tricks. There's also a Pterodon Knight. I've got like maybe 1 or 2 dinosaurs, but nah. Cheap combat trick. Do I have anything that explores? No. Do I have any way to deal with flyers? No. Alright, I guess I'll take the Crushing Canopy then. Definitely our colours seem to be a lot less open in this final pack. You know, the Siren Lookout's going pretty late. Most of the stuff we're looking at isn't very good. But I'll take Crushing Canopy for the side, because the deck is almost complete as it is right now. I was hoping to get, you know, a little bit more rewarded in this final pack, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So Ceratops, Demystify, kind of our options. Kinjali's Call is not going to do anything. I prefer something that actually attacks. So I'll take the Ceratops. Paladin of the Bloodstain seems pretty good, actually. I mean, it's got that vampire synergy, and just puts 2 dudes on the board, which can be nice. Yeah, I like a Paladin here. Magic Online does not know how to sort by mana cost. Dreadnought. I like a Dreadnought. Dreadnought's a good size. Turns all of our 2/2s into like a 4/6 later in the game, so I like that. Pretty good pickup. Now, do I want this Pterodon Knight or an Imperial Lancer? Again, I really have hardly any dinosaurs, so probably not going to play either of them. The Imperial Lancer is a pretty high upside, but yeah, I just don't really have any dinosaurs, so I'll take the Knight. So I could take a Cobbled Wings, but I don't think it's going to be very good in the deck. So I'll take another Crushing Canopy in case we run into flyers. I'll take a Looming Altasaur in case we, for some reason, decide to play that. I'm not playing Gregory, sorry. In a deck full of 1-drops. Which one's the foil? Alright, I'll take the foil. Deck's interesting. It's pretty low to the ground. I'm going to take out this Commander's Speaker, because we didn't get any more Merfolk. Green-white is certainly not an archetype I thought about going into this. But, you know, it did seem to have a lot of 2-drops open, and we got lots of cheap combat tricks that kind of replace themselves, so I'm kind of keen to see how this goes. Let's take out the Commander's Speaker for a start. What's our splash looking like? Evolving Wilds, Foul Orchard. We have 1, 2, 3 cards, and they don't matter if they come in later. Yeah, I'm pretty happy to run that in a single swamp. I don't know about the Traveler's Amulet. I don't really think I want any of these. It's pretty low to the ground deck. Pretty happy running 16 lands or 15 with the Traveler's Amulet, but I may as well just run... I mean, the Amulet does slow you down a little bit. What would I take out of here? I've got like a few too many of these Sun Sentinels. Famished Paladin, that's good. I kind of like all of these combat tricks. Do I want the Aegisaur? Maybe not. Yeah, I think it's just too expensive. I'll take out the Aegisaur, run the 16 and this. The question, or 16 or 15 with the Traveler's Amulet. We kind of want to be off to an aggressive start. What's the mana look like with this? And what does it recommend? I don't want any more swamps. So that gives us 6, 7, 8, 9 sources of green. It gives us 6, 7, 8 sources of white. And I want more white because I've got lots of cheap white combat tricks. So 7, 8, 9 sources of white, 5, 6, 7, 8 sources of green, 1, 2, 3, 4 sources of black. Mana's great. Even though we didn't get the rest of those jewels, seemed to work out pretty nicely. I like the splash. Deck looks cool. Let's give it a whirl. Here we are for round 1, and we lost the dice roll, so we're going to be on the draw. Our opening hand is not amazing. It's definitely not blazing out of the gates, but it has all of our colours of mana. It has a 2-drop removal spell and a combat trick, so it's pretty, like, you don't really want to pass this hand up, because it only gets worse from here. So we decided to keep. We draw a 3-drop, which is going to help our curve. And very nice. Opponent has a good curve out on us with a 3-1, and so we just lay down our 2-2 and take some damage here. It's going to be an unfortunately one-sided race if they start with a 3-1, and their follow-up is an Adzokan Seer, which is a very strong card in that it ramps both mana and you can get dinosaurs back with it. So here with the 3 mana that I've either got the choice of playing a Jungle Creeper or 2 other spells, and as you can see I decided to play Baffling End to take out the Seer, which gives me a nice attack with the Veteran, and play the Sky Marcher Aspirant. I've also got the option of attacking and trying to force a trade with the Moment of Triumph, but I very much doubt they're going to block my creature, so I feel like I may as well just do this, get some points of damage in. Opponent attacks back and has a Luminous Bonds for our Sky Marcher Aspirant, which is an interesting play. Either shows the opponent has lots of removal spells, or they're really scared of this 2-1. Again, we're kind of losing this damage race here, but I'm fine to play down the Jungle Creeper now as a bit of a blocker to this Raptor Companion if need be, since it can come back. Unfortunately, Imperial Aerosaur comes down and jumps the Raptor Companion, so we won't be blocking anytime soon. Also, the Aerosaur is going to get the beats on in the air, so we're going to have to be mindful of that. I decide that since we're losing the race so badly, I'm going to keep this hardy veteran back in order to block the Raptor Companion. I'll just trade off there. The veteran's kind of not going to be attacking so well, and I really want to get damage in, so I attack with this Jungle Creeper while I can. I'm going to be taking 3 points in the air no matter what, and so if I just take the entire 6 points of damage, I'm on a 2-turn clock, whereas if I take 3, I'm going to be on a 4-turn clock. Interesting move from the opponent. Because I passed with all my mana up, they actually didn't attack, which kind of tells you something about, Divine Verdict, Bright Reprisal in this set. So the opponent really playing around that, which is nice, because I actually am just flooded. I played the Evolving Wilds as well, so I could thin the deck a little bit more. Let's see what we draw. And we get a Sheltering Light, which is a nice little combat trick. Hopefully the opponent can, block us, but again, this Jungle Creeper comes back, so we'll just hope that the opponent does the same thing as last time, and again, they're kind of respecting this imaginary combat trick, so we save another 3 points of damage, attack with this Jungle Creeper. Opponent's finally going to do something, which is a Bright Reprisal. I decide to go ahead and use one of my combat tricks, Sheltering Light, just to being mana efficient, and I get to scry. Paladin of the Bloodstain seems like pretty efficient on this board, so I'll keep it there. Opponent just takes it, so I can play down the Thrashing Brontodon. Kind of obvious now that I don't have this destroy target attacking creature spell, or at least I don't have it open. So they go ahead and attack with the Aerosaur. But now we've got tons of beaters on the ground, and we've got a nice one coming up as well in the Paladin of the Bloodstain, which gives us 2 bodies. I just go and send with the teams, so this is a lethal attack, so they do have to block, but if they only block one, for instance, like this, then we just get to Moment of Triumph for the win. As it is, they've got a 3-3 and a 2-1, and they're just letting my 3-3 through. So I decide to go ahead and make mine a 4-6, which saves it and kills both of their creatures. Play down a Paladin, and now we're in a pretty unassailable position, outside of a sweeper of some kind. Martyr of Dusk, and no attacks from the opponent. And we draw a Jade Light Ranger, which is pretty nice. Attack with the team, so the best blocks are kind of a chump block and a trade. Opponent goes to 1. Play down a Jade Light Ranger. I decide to put both those spells in the bin since neither of them are particularly amazing. I guess the Sky Marcher Aspirant is pretty good. Jungleborn Pioneer is one of the few cards that makes tons of bodies, but we've still got more attackers than they do blockers, so outside of some combat tricks we're in good shape, and the opponent scoops. So we go to the sideboard, just taking a note at the opponent's deck. They've got Imperial Aerosaur. They also green-white, and they do have a lot of cheap bodies. Worth noting about the Bright Reprisal as well. So in terms of sideboarding, they have that one Imperial Aerosaur, so I could bring in something like a Crushing Canopy, but outside of, green's definitely not known for its flyers, and white, it's got a couple of flyers in the high end, but I only saw one, so it's possible they've only got one, and I decided that Crushing Canopy, just for taking out that one flyer, it probably isn't worth it, and in the long run it'll just be better to try and beat them down with cheap, aggressive starts than having a Crushing Canopy rotting in my hands. So again we're on the draw, and our opening hand is kind of similar to last time, except we know that their deck is now aggressive and we're missing that removal spell. And we also, we want to be out in the front foot, and this, we got kind of lucky last game with not being too flooded, whereas this definitely looks like a hand that's going to get flooded. So I take a mulligan and end up keeping a 2-lander with double 1-drops, which is nice. Evolving Wilds also helping us fix our mana. We do have a double green card. We're going to be a little bit slower out of the gates here, but we do get to play a 1-drop on both turns. And then we're going to be able to follow up with some green 2-drops. The opponent also has a 2-drop. And they go in for the block. I could use my combat trick to save it, but I'm kind of more interested in getting creatures on the board at this stage. They play an Imperial Aerosaur for no value, and they go ahead and block here. I've got a choice of which combat trick to use. Because I've drawn a swamp, I can, if I use my Moment of Triumph, play another creature this turn, even though it's not the most efficient of uses. The Aggressive Urge would trade and get a creature. I feel like in terms of mana, this is going to be the play that gets me ahead the most, since I can then play a 2-drop down. Luminous Bonds comes on the Stalker, and we kind of miss on lands, but we draw the land off the Aggressive Urge. I should just explain, I because I had nothing else for the next couple of turns, I used the aggressive urge literally just to draw a card, hoping to hit that land drop and get an extra point of damage in. Opponent passes with all 5 of their... 5? All 6 of their mana up, which is a bit of a signal for me. We did see Bright Reprisal last time, and there's not many other things that flash in white and green, so I decided since I'm only attacking with a 2-4, I'll just let it go. I'll give them a taste of their own medicine and not attack into 6 open mana. Just develop the board. Luminous Bonds comes on the Paladin. We pick up a Legion Lieutenant, which buffs our little vampire that can attack in for 4. We're kind of missing on green though, so we don't get to play this Jade Light Ranger. Opponent has a pretty nice play with Martyr of Dusk followed up by Journey to Eternity. So if their creature dies, it flips into this land, which gives some pretty insane value, and is definitely something that, you know, I might not want to attack into. Aggressive Urge, however, I mean, the thing is, I don't really have anything else to develop the board, is the problem. Like, I don't have any other creatures, so I could wait and try and draw some more creatures, but I could just brick a couple of times. This is an interesting decision point, whether or not to attack and give them this land. I felt like I could out-pressure them enough if I attacked, and because I've got this aggressive urge, I want to use it, I want to draw into stuff, because the obvious block is on the Legion Lieutenant, which then I can save with the aggressive urge. So I go ahead and do that. I draw the green, but can't cast the Jade Light Ranger this turn. They manage to transform their land. We get them to 3, so we're definitely getting close to finishing out the game. They actually use their land to display a Grazing Whiptail, so they have 3 blockers now. We draw an Evolving Wild, so I go ahead and pre-combat play the Jade Light Ranger, see what we're working with. Thrashing Brontodon seems pretty good. I keep it on top twice to give 2+1/+1 counters, and no attacks since they can just block all of our things effectively. A Seer comes down, which means again they don't have enough to activate this cave. So I could attack here, but again, like, I lose my Lieutenant, I lose the Vampire token, probably the Jade Light Ranger. It's a bit of a risky attack, so I'm trying to just get into a position where I'm gumming up the board enough in order to, to go wide. They only have 2 cards in the graveyard, so it might just get into a case of us building out the board. I don't really want to kill any of their creatures if I can't kill them, because they're just going to get more value out of it. So at this point we really, again, just trying to calculate how many blockers they have, how many attackers we have. They're attacking us with the Aerosaur, but that's fine because we've got plenty of life. Squire's Devotion's pretty nice since it gives us a threat that can attack through the Whiptail, and another Vampire which gets pumped up with a Lieutenant, but I leave it a turn so we can attack with his Vampire token. Opponent brings back the Stalker. It's a very nice grindy game. They decide not to attack with the Aerosaur this time, which is pretty intelligent. I draw a Vanguard, which again maybe postpones my attack. I'm essentially waiting for a turn that I draw a creature and the opponent doesn't draw a creature in order to attack, since I kind of want to go wide enough. So they drew a Seer. Opponent's deck looks pretty sweet. I drew a Sun Sentinel, so again that makes me want to hold off the attacks until they don't draw something. Also be nice to have a combat trick or the like. Okay, so here they don't have anything, and so depending on what we draw we might want to attack. Like if we draw nothing, which we do, then this is an okay opportunity for attack. I could also wait, but I've got a pretty big incentive to get them as low as possible, since they're going to just get tons of value in the late game with this cave. So they make some blocks. Pretty advantageous for them. I trade off with a couple of creatures which are going to come back. They have a Sheltering Light to save one of their creatures, but I do get them to 2 life. They bring back the Martyr of Dusk as a great chump blocker. Attack in, gain some life, and we're kind of back to square one, where they've got more creatures than us. We get Squire's Devotion again, which makes the Adante Vanguard a pretty threatening attacker. Since it's got lifelink, we can make it indestructible all the time. Of course, they've got a pretty good blocker. I didn't actually realize at this stage, I thought they didn't have any black, so they couldn't bring it back, but then Adzakan Seer taps to add black, so that's the reason I attacked there, even though it didn't make much sense. Luminous Bonds takes out our Vanguard. We draw a Moment of Triumph, which isn't very good, so we're kind of actually in a bit of a tricky spot at the moment. Like, again, we can't really get them off this 3 life, by attacking, since we have to go wider than their entire board, and that's pretty hard, and we don't really have any ways to deal with this Aerosaur, as we know. There's an option to sacrifice the Brontodon to take out one of these Luminous Bonds, probably the one on the Vanguard, but again we lose a creature to gain a creature, so only if they point removal in that direction will that be any good. So the one out for my deck that I'm quite hopeful about, because I've only got 12 cards left, is that I draw exactly Dark Nourishment. I mean, they're on 3 life and they're not attacking with their vampires, so Dark Nourishment is presumably lethal. So if I just keep, taking my hits, and there we go, I managed to draw it in the bottom 11 cards, Dark Nourishment to the face, and we win that game. So looking back on it, the attack with all the creatures was a little risky. It's hard to tell how it would have gone if I hadn't done the attack there, like they did draw several creatures in a row after I'd made the attack. So it could definitely have been the wrong move, but I felt like getting them as low as possible, knowing that I had the Dark Nourishment in the deck to finish them off, and yeah, just trying to force the issue. Who knows, we end up winning, but it was definitely a close game, and closer than I thought, considering our pretty aggressive opening start. So we win round 1, and we'll see you back for round 2. Here we are for round 2. We lost the dice roll, as is mandatory for an aggressive deck, and our opening hand has one castable card in our splash colour, the Jungle Creeper, and nothing else going on. I mean, there's a chance we'll draw into white, but this is a pretty poor keep in my opinion. So I take a mulligan, and we got a 6-card hand, which you didn't even manage to see there, which also was unkeepable. And so we go to a 5-card hand, which luckily does have both of our colours and lots of 2-drops, so we have to hope that this manages to draw out of it. Squire's Devotion, I send, I believe, to the bottom. We don't really want to draw that. Yeah. So Evolving Wild going to lead with, so we can actually play our 2-drops on time. Opponent has a Raptor Companion. Most of our opponents seem to be playing green-white Raptor Companions, so maybe it's just a thing I don't know about. Get some of our 2-drops down. So we've got the option of trading here, but the opponent has open mana, so I'm just going to take it. We kind of want to be aggressive. The Jungleborn Pioneer just continuing to impress, putting multiple bodies on the board. So imagine, like, if you played a Raptor Companion, they play this, you're like, oh, okay, well, I can't attack, I can't really block. Anyway, attack with the Hardy Veteran, since our intention is to play another 2-drop, probably to trade off with the Raptor Companion at this stage. They don't really have any blocks. Play a Sun Sentinel. So the Sun Sentinel can attack and block at the same time, but they use a Hunt the Weak, which is pretty nice, taking it out. We do at least manage to draw a land. My clear intention here is to trade off with the Hatchling and just take my medicine, really. I don't have a good double block for the Jungleborn Pioneer, so I may as well attack with the Hardy Veteran. We trade off there, fall to 6, draw a Legion Lieutenant, and yeah, now we can't attack. So they attack with their Pioneer. I kind of am forced into blocking at this point, because otherwise it's a 2-turn clock. I decide to use the Aggressive Urge before blocks, probably in case I draw the +2/+2, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. Go ahead, block. I guess they can't destroy it in response, but not much of an upside. And then just play a 6/6 with Trample. We do draw a Sky's Devotion now, which would have been nice if we had a creature, but yeah, not much we're doing against the 6/6 with Trample. We're just chump blocking it for a turn and then dying the next turn, so that's game 1. Sideboarding again, not too much to say. Green-white, we could bring in a Looming Altasaur because their deck seemed fairly aggressive, but again, our deck is aggressive, so we kind of want to race them. Snubhorn Sentry, again, maybe, but I feel like we've got better attackers and blockers, and it really does nothing until the late part of the game. So, yeah, we just ship it back and hope not to mulligan to 5. So here we go, 7-card hand, and our first time on the play, so we're feeling good. Technically, as all of our colours are mana, although it's a little bit slow. Got to lead with an Evolving Wilds here. So we're going to get the Adante Vanguard down on turn 2, which is very nice. If we manage to draw a land, we can even Squire's Devotion on turn 3, which is a bit of a wombo combo, giving the Adante Vanguard lifelink, because it's pretty much impossible to remove outside of pacifism effects, or -1/-1. Gleaming Barrier is a pretty nice blocker to our Adante Vanguard. My intention here is to just play a 2-drop in the Evolving Wild, but I may as well get into the habit of attacking, since I'm going to probably either use some combat tricks later or Squire's Devotion, and really, I mean, they might not block, there's not a high chance, but I'm never really never losing anything by not attacking. End of turn, I fetch out the Swamp, makes my Vanguard into a 4/4 attacker, which is pretty nice. The barrier won't be able to block it effectively, so the opponent's just going to take the hit, we gain 4 life. Cacophodon comes down, which is a nice blocker, it's a 2/5, but we do have tons of combat tricks in hand, so going to use the most efficient in the Aggressive Urge, which draws us a card. Play the Plains. opponent uses their Seer, sacrifices it to get back the Cacophodon, and then casts it again, which is interesting, but I guess they just really want blockers. Attack with the Vanguard again, they block, so use a different combat trick, gain some more life, run 37 from this Zidante Vanguard attacking, and get to play down a 2-drop as well, so things looking good for us, although the opponent still has tons of life to work with. New Horizons makes the Gleaming Barrier 1/5, again perfect size to block this Zidante Vanguard, and they have a 0/3 as well. So I do have the option of using a Moment of Triumph here to take out the Gleaming Barrier, but I feel like, you know, I'll find better uses for it in the future. I do manage to chip through for 2 points of damage. They have a Cherished Hatchling. Dusk Legion Dreadnought is a nice draw because it makes one of our 2-drops into sort of more powerful threats. I'm on 45 life at this stage, so feeling not too bad. So the opponent had an attack there which was a bit curious. They attacked their Cherished Hatchling into a Dusk Legion Dreadnought. You know, like if I was on lower life, sure, maybe I'd take the bait, but on 45, I'm pretty confident just to take 2 damage and see what happens. Turns out they have a Slaughter the Strong as a follow-up, so it's actually not that effective on our board, since most of this is smaller when it's not attacking, this isn't a creature, so it actually only involves us sacrificing really 2 creatures, a 2-drop and the Vampire. So I decided to keep the 2 most effective 2-drops and sacrifice the rest. Worth noting for future games that Slaughter the Strong. Keep our 2-drops around. We draw a Thrashing Brontodon which we cannot cast, but we can at least start attacking for real damage here with the Dreadnought. We've got the Sheltering Light to protect it. Again, I'm not using this Moment of Triumph, although it's getting to the stage where maybe I should be using it because I'd be forcing through more damage. Attack with the Dreadnought. Get some different blocks this time. The Cherished Hatchling's going to die, so I'm kind of aware that there might be a dinosaur flashed in, but I've got tons of combat tricks if I want. Spike-tailed Ceratops comes in, and it's going to fight the 2/4. So I have the option of saving it with all my combat tricks, but I'm really not that attached to the 2/4, so I just let it die. Save my combat tricks for a better time. Of course, if they targeted the Brontodon, I can just sacrifice it to take out the Gleaming Barrier. As it is, I can again clue up the Dreadnought and keep attacking in. They have a bit of a better blocking situation this time, as they can try and trade with this Legion Dreadnought. So, options here of combat tricks. I could use a Moment of Triumph just to make this kill one of their creatures. I could use a Sheltering Light again just to kill one creature. I felt like I'd try and take out 2 creatures, use the Dark Nourishment on the Snubhorn Sentry, and then just take out the Spike Ceratops the old-fashioned way. I've still got 1 wired up for another combat trick if they have any response. Turns out they have a Pounce, so they're going to pounce their Sentry onto the Dreadnought, so I Sheltering Light it. So we do get 2 cards. I guess we're up a card there, although we do have to use 2 of ours, and we don't gain the life. Not that it really matters because we're on 51. Squire's Devotion means on the Vanguard now means we can attack through this Jungle Barrier as a 5/3 attacker. Jungle Barrier, Gleaming Barrier. So we're still putting the beats on the opponent. They've got a few chump blockers for days, but you know we're eventually getting there, and we're gaining tons of life. Knight of the Stampede comes down. I play the Jade Light Ranger to see what we've got coming up. Neither of those seem particularly impressive. Crew in the Dreadnought and attack. I could have attacked with the Brontodon, but it's probably just going to trade off like the 2/4, maybe the 1/5. I don't know. It didn't seem like a great attack, so I just attacked with my good creatures. Opponent decides to go ahead and put everything in front of the Dreadnought. I feel like this is a good moment to use my Moment of Triumph since I get to take out multiple creatures. The question is, what creatures do I want to take out? And I decided that a Gleaming Barrier is annoying, and I may as well take out the Raptor Companion with the extra point of damage. What I didn't realise at this point was that it was, even with the Moment of Triumph, it is enough damage to perfectly kill the Dreadnought. So I could have used the Brontodon to take out the Barrier and the Moment of Triumph to take out the Knight of the Stampede and, say, the Jungle Pioneer, which I think is a much better play. So this is a big mistake on my part. Even though it looks kind of minor, I feel like taking out all 3 of their creatures here would have been a huge play, and instead I kind of miscalculated the damage, just chucked my Moment of Triumph on and only traded for 2 creatures. Gave them a treasure, and as we'll see, I also left them around with Knight of the Stampede. I was like, what costs more than, 7 mana that they don't have? Oh, it turns out this thing. Sorry, keyword soup. We need to read this one. Alright, so they have an 8 mana 4/8 flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, indestructible. Yeah, cool. Alright, well, as long as they can't give it lifelink, I'm not too scared. Actually, I'm kind of scared, but, you know, our indestructible creatures tangle, I gain a net 1 life. So now again, I'm in this situation where I've got to try and go round the opponent, but they have a Hunt the Weak to take out my creatures. And oh, it has Vigilance, that's right, and Double Strikes. They're hitting me for 10 a turn in the air. I decide to force the issue here since I've got the aggressive urge. So I've got the option of either saving my Jade Light Ranger or taking out their Knight of the Stampede. They're on 0 cards, so it's unlikely they've got another like 8 or 9 drop dinosaur. So I feel like saving my creature is probably better. Just get up a creature, get up a card. We draw a Sentinel. So we're taking 10 a turn. Luckily we've got a good life total to play with. Opponent has a pretty good draw in the Colossal Dreadmaw, and we have a pretty poor one in the Baffling End since you can only target 1 creature. E.g. the Kinjali's cooler, but you know, it's better than nothing, I guess. So we might get to a stage where we can take out their Kinjali's cooler and attack for lethal. We do draw a Sky Marcher Aspirin, which is pretty nice for us since it now has flying, and the only flyer they've got is this huge thing. But if they're blocking the flyer on that, they have to block something on the Vanguard. They can block... The Dreadmaw can block the Vanguard, and they can block the flyer. Yeah, so they can block the flyer on that, the Dreadmaw on that, and they've got 2 other blockers, but if we take out one of them, they've got 1 other blocker, so if they don't have anything, we actually have a lethal attack next turn. We draw another Sky Marcher Aspirant, Baffling End their Kinjali's Caller, and do that attack that I mentioned before, attack with everything. So they have a total of 3 blockers, so they would have to take a minimum of 5 damage. We got there in the end. Back down to 28 life, but we managed to get there. So yeah, apart from that big misplay in the middle, that was a pretty interesting game. So our sideboard again, we've got these Crushing Canopies, which don't seem great against an indestructible flyer, so it looks like they're going to have to stay in the board. Just going to hope that we can aggro them out before they get their big drops down. Even though they had that good early game defense, we kind of know what's more in their deck now, so we can attempt to play around it. We're not going to be surprised by a giant flyer, and we're going to kill off their Knight of the Stampede when we can. So our opening hand again has all of our colours of mana. It's not amazing, but it's definitely a keeper since we can, you know, play a turn 2 2-drop. We can probably play, you know, Squire's Devotion and Legion Lieutenant to buff the token, all of those kind of things. You know, it's got all the ingredients we need. So we'll lead with our Foul Orchard since it's always going to come in tapped. Raptor Companion, of course, comes down. We draw a pretty nice one in Famished Paladin. If we draw an untapped land next turn, we can stick a Squire's Devotion on the Famished Paladin and just untap it permanently. Unfortunately, we don't, but I'm still going to attack in here, not going to miss out on the damage, and play a Hardy Veteran. They keep the Raptor Companion back. I decide to buff up the Hardy Veteran with my Combat Trick and remove their Raptor Companion to attack. Could have buffed up the Famished Paladin and just attacked without the removal spell, but the opponent's not really doing anything at this point, so I felt it was better to be mana efficient. Also worth noting that in between Game 2 and Game 3, Magic Online disconnected me for about 5 minutes. That's why I really don't have much time on the clock, and why I'm playing a little bit faster than I might normally. So here I'm going to put the Squire's Devotion on the Hardy Veteran and attack in. A bit risky if they have the Bright Reprisal, but at least I get the 1/1 lifelink, which can also untap the Paladin, and it looks like the opponent actually is just kind of mana screwed, so they scoop it up. Kind of unfortunate because our hand was definitely curving out nicely. Would have been an interesting game if they'd had some actual blockers, but yeah, I guess that's what you do with Magic Online sometimes, you just get mana screwed. So with a bit of a sad win there, we go 2-0 and we're on to the finals. Here we are in the finals, and Providence has decreed we shall go first, so we win the dice roll. Our hand is not the most aggressive, but again, all colours of mana, 2-drop combat tricks, so yeah, I guess we'll make it work. Lead with the Foul Orchard. I'm going to pop the Handy Veteran down unless we draw something better. Draw another combat trick. So we're hoping our Hardy Veteran goes the whole way here. Looks like the opponent's on Merfolk. It's a bit annoying we can't follow it up with a 3-drop. I decided to actually use an aggressive urge to try and get some cards flowing. We do draw the 2-drop now, but we can't cast it. Going to be taking 2 Jungleborn Pioneer. I swear, this card, so good. Attack in. We get to play a Sun Sentinel. We do have some blocks here because we've got the aggressive urge. The opponent has a pretty nice one in the Seafloor Oracle, which is going to make all of their Merfolk draw a card when they damage me. So they're drawing a minimum of 2 cards this turn. The question is, what do I want to block? I decided to use the Aggressive Urge to get, more mana efficiency here. Essentially, I'm looking through my next turn. My next turn, I want to kill the Seafloor Oracle with my Dark Nourishment. It's going to take 5 mana. I'm going to have no more mana left, so I may as well use this Aggressive Urge, make my 3/3, and block their otherwise unblockable creature, essentially, against my deck, since most of my stuff is power 2. So make that block. They draw 2 cards. We draw a Skymarcher Aspirin, which is nice, but we kind of have to Dark Nourishment their rare, otherwise it's just going to get out of control. And get to attack in for 4. So we're nicely ahead in the race actually at the moment, even though they managed to draw 2 cards. Jade Bearer is going to give them a 3/3, and a Jade Guardian is also a 3/3, but they keep everything back. Kind of signal a little bit here by attacking. I don't like if they make lots of blocks. It's not a great position, but I felt like I had so many combat tricks, they might just be scared, and they were in fact. They just took all 4 damage. Play a Skymarcher. And there's a question about whether or not to leave open mana for Moment of Triumph in case they've got like Hunt the Weeks or something, but I figure it's probably just better to get as many creatures on the board, and Hunt the Week's going to take out one of our creatures at some point anyway. Instead they have Entrancing Melody, which is like even worse because they managed to take our 2/1 and give it flying. They attack for 6 points of damage here, play another Stalker, so their opponent has a really low curve deck as well. I decided to descend with the entire team. There's not much going on at this point, and we drew a land, so we have to try and win through, sheer trickery. Opponent blocks like this, which means we can Moment of Triumph our Sentinel to keep it alive, and trade off with all of the opponent's creatures, which is pretty nice. Into the Unknown is going to explore, and Skymarcher becomes a 3/2. They revealed Expel from Erazka. Conveniently, they also have the City's Blessing, so this is going to essentially, put one of our permanents back on top of our library, and we're going to draw it again. So this is what we've got to work with for the rest of the game, pretty much. So the opponent attacks here, and we have no blocks because it's their best chance of winning. They cast Charter Course. We know Expel from Erazka is in their hand. We attack, and it's an interesting choice of whether or not to play this Moment of Triumph. I decide not to because I'm trying to bluff them. We know they've got this Expel from Erazka in their hand, right? They cast Charter Course last turn, so they've got that. So our Skymarcher Aspirin is probably going to get bounced back to the top of our library. But we can use the Moment of Triumph as a gain 2 life effect, if we want, if they attack us with all 3 of their creatures and they don't have a follow-up creature, which is unlikely, but I feel that was better than using the Moment of Triumph to try and take out the Jade Guardian, because then they would have bounced our 2/2 and we wouldn't have gained the life at all. We would have had the Skymarcher Aspirant, but it wouldn't have had Ascend, so it wouldn't have been able to just be chump blocking. Interesting choice. It was pretty close there. This at least does give us a shot to win, since we have 4 damage on the backswing. So we've got to hope that the opponent makes a mistake and lets us win, essentially. It is possible, there is a line to victory here, so that's why I played it the way I did. It's possible that maybe using the combat trick was better. Expel from Erazka, there we go, puts our Aspirant on top. And they have a follow-up 2/3 here, which kind of stymies our plans, since we know we're drawing Skymarcher Aspirant next turn. We don't have the combat trick anymore. We're going to have to use it if they attack with all their creatures here, so we're actually just going to be dead on board. It's kind of unfortunate. If they'd had a... if they hadn't had a creature there, then we would have been in fine shape, but because they followed it up, then they take the game. And, fair enough, that was a very well played from the opponent, and, they deserve the win. Our sideboard really doesn't have much against Merfolk. We're also low to the ground and aggressive, so I could bring in the Bellowing Aegisaur to pump up the team, but again it's pretty slow, and Merfolk has lots of evasive creatures and threats, so I decided just to stick with the deck as it is. On the play again, here we are, and we do have a pretty nice hand. We're missing like maybe 1 mana, I'd like, in place of, say, the Jungle Creeper, but we've got the Vanguard, a Legion Lieutenant, Combat Trick, and a Removal Spell. It's a bit unfortunate. Evolving Wild is going to have to probably fetch out a Swamp here. We've got no green cards in hand apart from the Jungle Creeper, and it's likely to draw green, and I really want to be able to cast this Legion Lieutenant. Unfortunately, we draw a green card after saying that, but who were we to know? Get to put the Vanguard down. Land next turn, of course, would be a great draw. Opponent has a Deeproot Warrior. So we draw another green card, so not looking great for us. So our options here are we can Baffling End the Deeproot Warrior, or we can cast a Legion Lieutenant, which essentially gives our Vanguard 1 bigger. I'm remembering the opponent's deck. I mean, I didn't actually see it last time, but you know, green decks generally have Hunt the Weak. So if I can get the Legion Lieutenant down and manage to like protect it, that's pretty good. But you know, I don't really see the point of baffling ending the Deep-Root Warrior yet, because Hunt the Weak is next turn. So I feel like it's better to develop the board, get creatures down, and then use removal spells, which is generally the plan in these kind of aggressive decks. Get your creatures down, then use your combat tricks and removal spells. Attack with the Vanguard, they have to take 4. Turns out the opponent has the better version of Hunt the Weak, which is just Savage Stomp, which I didn't see last game, so I'm kind of forgiven for not playing around it. They'd take out the Lieutenant and get to bash in for 3 as well. Really hoping to draw lands here. Instead we draw a 4-drop. So now I do kind of have to be mana efficient, baffling end their 3/3, attack them back. So we're really hoping to draw Forest here as like our primary draw. Jungleborn Pioneer, every time, such a good card. Anyway, they play the Pioneer, we draw another 1-drop, and we don't really have a good attack here, unfortunately, since they can just block with their 1/1 and we have to pay 4 life. So that's definitely stymied us for a little while. 5 mana is a 3/2 flying hexproof, and we draw another Moment of Triumph, so definitely not hitting these land drops, but does mean we can make an attack. My logic being, if they put, say, well, this is the ideal block. If they block the other way around, it's also essentially comes to the same effect. So I can give the Vanguard indestructible, and I can Moment of Triumph my Aspirant to take out their Pioneer. Also, I can take out one of the opponent's cards effectively, but does the job. They have an attack for 3, a Charter Course to draw 2 cards, and they only have 1 follow-up, and we do draw a land, so things are, you know, not too bad for us. Paying the life here. I do have an Expel from Erazka. I was aware of the Expel from Erazka, which is why I wasn't using combat tricks or anything, because they had the 2 blue up, so they essentially made us pay 4 life, and then they bounced this to our hand, which is nasty, but we didn't really have anything else to do this turn anyway, so just could play the Vanguard down. They attack, and here I go ahead and use a Moment of Triumph to take out the Stalker, gain some life. Another Jungleborn Pioneer is going to make attacking on the ground pretty tough. And they also have a River Data. So, again, land would be great. Squire's Devotion is also a nice draw, since it, you know, lets us put it on the Vanguard, start gaining some life, and that they've already used their bounce spell that we know about. So, getting into a pretty tight spot here. We're not going to get Ascend immediately. I think we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 permanents. So we need a land and then play one of our spells, and the Sky March will then be able to block the Soul of the Rapids. The Sky Marcher does not have a good attack currently, but the Vanguard does, since it's now 2 toughness, and we're going to gain some life off it. Pay the 4 life, gain the 4 life. Opponent has a Hunt the Weak on their Soul of the Rapids, targeting our Sky Marcher, which is unfortunate. We're out of combat tricks though, so we couldn't really have stopped that anyway. Opponent's deck just looks really stacked. They make an attack here, which is a lethal attack, so I do need to block 1 of 2 creatures with my token. If I block the River Data, I take 5, I go to 2, I gain 4 on the crackback, I go up to 6, and then they have 6 if I don't have a creature to play. So essentially, either way, I need to draw an untapped land next turn to survive, or a creature, technically, that costs 3. So I go ahead and block the most profitable one, which is the 1/1 Merfolk, trading off for my lifelinker. Drop down to 2. I do draw the land, and it is a forest. That's the best possible card. Attack with my 4/2. Hope they don't have a bounce spell. Well, they're on 0 cards. Of course, they don't have anything in hand. I actually knew that. So I knew that they didn't have anything, so I was gaining that 4 life back. Paladin of the Bloodstained seems like the best threat. Puts out 2 bodies, and one of them's lifelink. So we're actually in a pretty close position here. Opponent has a 4/3 flyer, but we've got, you know, if we attack next turn, we're gaining 4, so, you know, we're always just going to be slightly ahead, and we've got this vampire now. So the opponent needed to draw exactly a something to deal with our Vanguard, otherwise they're dead. So we make the attack with everything here. They only had 1 draw step to find it as well, so it's pretty unlikely. I'm feeling pretty confident about this game. They block with the River Data, so they're passing priority to give me the option to pay life, which is stupid because I don't have any life. So I'm going to let these trade. Opponent's going to take 4, and I'm going to gain 5 life, and then I get to follow up with a Hardy Veteran and a Jungle Creeper. So I'm feeling pretty good about this game. Turns out the 1 card the opponent drew was Depth of Desire. Of course, the bounce spell that they needed to stop me from gaining life, take my Vanguard back to my hand, and then I'm just dead to the flyer. So what can you do? I mean, we played that game as tight as it was. We got mana screwed in the beginning. We managed to eke out enough advantage that we were in a position to win, and then the opponent did manage to draw the one card that would save them. I mean, they might have more than one card, but it was pretty narrow what they needed. It was a bounce spell. So yeah, we lose in the finals, and the opponents had a very strong deck. I'm surprised we actually did as well as we did against it. Double Jungleborn Pioneer, the Savage Stomp, multiple bounce spells, Hunt the Weak, Expel. Anyway, that will do it for this draft. We finish at 2-1 and had some very, good games there. Had some tight calls. We got close to getting there, didn't quite. We learned that green-white aggro can be a deck, which I didn't know before going into this. So, wish you all the best of luck in your Rivals of Ixalan drafts, and hope to see you next time here on Arcane Cards for some more drafting fun. That's all for now. See you later.